opening segment where, look, we said that nothing imminent is really happening with realignment today, in spite of what you may have read. Colorado is having a meeting, which I believe pertains to athletics, but again, that could be a lot of other different things. So.
Yeah, we've had a few of these meetings that have come and gone that are like you get built up like, is this the day? And then it's not. And is like in a lot of like looking into like board items and things like that. And hey, it's cool. Like the folks that do that, like not knocking it at all. But like we've seen quite a few of those, I feel like, over the last few months that have sort of popped up and then gone away. And you don't hear about them anymore, But there is, one that's lining up tomorrow. And so now this one's the big, will this be the day, scuttlebutt? And I've seen some of the, usual folks who monitor those types of things that are, kind of gearing up for maybe this is when a big decision by Colorado is made. I don't know. Like, you refer to the start of the show. I mean, I know there's nothing to report today, on our end and nothing to go with there. But, tomorrow, could that change in theory? Sure, it could, just like it could have 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago when they've had other ones. But, I mean, yeah, like we said, you kind of are getting to the point now where it's like, all right, something's got to give, like for real. And, maybe that's it. I don't know. We'll see, but it would be no surprise whatsoever if that thing came and went and we're here tomorrow and like we're not even mentioning it whatsoever. I don't even know what time it starts, but I think that remains to be seen. But who the heck knows? Like we're not pretending to know everything and every little detail and what exactly everything is going on. I mean, we're flying blind in some ways too, outside of just certain things. So yeah, I mean, I can't say that we know for sure what Colorado's doing or thinking or whatever. So yeah, we'll play that by ear and see how that goes. But that is something that is out there circulating and bubbling up as a possibility for some news tomorrow.
Yeah, and a couple different people, Roger Dodger and Big Tech Dwell, making 1-11 jokes in the chat room. Yeah, they're 1-11. But yeah, they've got a coach who everyone in the sports world knows. Like if you are a sports fan and you said Deion Sanders, you say, I don't know who that is. You'd be like, I don't think he really likes sports.
Well, they're going to follow up with he won't be there in 3 years, and all that.
And he may not. I don't know. That's kind of his that's kind of his career path, whether it's TV or coaching or when he was a professional athlete, baseball, football, whatever you want to say. He was somewhere for a couple years and he'd go. That's what Deion does. So, but I mean, there's that around the program right now. And I do think it's kind of strange when you think about Colorado coming back to a conference that they left, that the conference they left is so different than the one when they left it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they left and they were the only one and now they're coming back. Like, they're coming back to a league that's totally different. They're not coming back to play Texas and Oklahoma and A&M and Nebraska and Missouri. Those schools are all gone. They're coming, if they were to come back, then they're playing UCF and TCU. And yeah, I mean, yes, they played Baylor and Oklahoma State and Iowa State and Kansas State before, and Tech. But yeah, the rest of the other part of the league, the other 7 teams that they'd be coming back for are all new, West Virginia.
Well, I just find it all very, you're right. You're right that there is a very different looking set of teams in front of them than when they left. I mean, shoot, even the state of the programs when they left, like Baylor's not the same Baylor that it was back in 2010. Like, they've won a Heisman and 3 Big 12 championships and a Sugar Bowl all in that time since Colorado left.
Yeah.
Not to mention a basketball national title, men's and women's. So, yeah, I mean, that program alone's wildly different than the one Colorado used to see.
They were a gimme when Colorado was
Think about that. In the time that they've won a basketball national title, men's and women's, 3 Big 12 football titles, a Sugar Bowl, a Heisman Trophy, all that since Colorado, because RG3 was 2011, right? And Colorado's last year was 2010, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, wow, that's crazy. I mean, it has been a decade, but still, if you would have told them on the way out, by the way, Baylor's going to do this and this,
the year after,
go to hell, that's not happening.
The year after you leave, Baylor is going to win the Heisman Trophy. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. Yeah, it is.
So to your point, it's a wildly different
thing.
TCU's playing college football playoff a year ago. Yeah, I mean,
and
weren't even in the league.
And it's weird. If anybody leaves the Pac-12 right now, it's kind of a proactive move in one regard, but a reactive move in the other. in that the Big 12 adding TCU and West Virginia when all those other schools left wasn't proactive. It was reactive to the fact that they were down to 8 teams and they needed to get to 10. So they added TCU and West Virginia and then stopped for whatever reason at 10 because I don't know the reason. They were splitting up the money and didn't want to try to carve out the pie anymore because the TV deal was what the TV deal was. Now, if you're Colorado, Arizona, anybody else who would maybe leave the Pac-12 and go to another conference, it is maybe proactive to do it before the TV deal, but it's also reactive to the fact that you don't have one and like maybe nothing is going anywhere. So it's very strange. They're in this nebulous territory of, is it a good move to do this now, or is it just being reactive to something that you don't completely grasp?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you were to make a list of the positives and negatives on their end, I think that'd be a pretty long list on either side, really. I mean, there's plenty of positives, but I mean, clearly, we need to see what happens first. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. I mean, it's I guess though, just what would it look like if they were in fact to make that move? Yeah, I mean, it's weird to look back on, like what all led up to it, and what's occurred and what has clearly been more important than maybe you realized it was, or maybe things that are less important than you thought that they were. Because I mean, that's a massive change, man. Like they know it, they've done it already in the last 15 years, but to come back would be, man, it's just wild. I mean, and to last, less than 15 years in the other conference that you left for, and for it to be over, I guess just seemingly money and TV exposure, it's just wild. Like when all this started up, I was just like, I don't really feel like there's much of a chance of this. And then, as things kind of started adding up, there's waves to it all, with the news cycle and everything. But yeah, I mean, the fact that we're even here at this point, and it's a pretty good possibility, but not a sure thing, still is a bit surprising.
Yeah, and when they left the Big 12 before, that was like they were like, no, this play, there's all this infighting, this conference is going nowhere. We're tired of being pushed around, and they were part of that too, like not to the degree, at least that maybe Nebraska felt that they were, or A&M felt that they were, but. Look, what's better on the other end of this is to go somewhere where you may not do that, and their choice ultimately was headed for the same kind of tumultuous fate that the Big 12 has had, and if the Pac-12 survives it, more power to them. But, they jumped out of the frying pan, and they didn't realize it, but, a decade later, they're in the fire. And that's just how college athletics goes, and the Big 12 has stabilized itself to a point where, they're all of a sudden an attractive option to come back to. It is, and if you had told me in 2011 that one day we would talk about Colorado coming back, I'd been like, why? What's going to change for them? Because in 2011, when they left, I was like, well, I mean, nobody thought about the Big Ten, like taking teams from California. I mean, like that wasn't even in the offing. So, it's all gotten so strange that, it's hard to even look back. And if you told them, like, look, why don't you just stay here and write it out so you don't have to deal with this again? I wonder if they would have done it. Like if Doc Brown and Marty pull up in the DeLorean and like, oh, yeah, don't do it.
Well, first of all, they're not back yet.
Yeah, I know.
We got to make that clear for people who are just maybe flipping over. There's nothing official on that. It's just discussing, speculating what that would even look like if that were to happen. But yeah, I mean, it's also, as we began this whole conversation, it's a much different Big 12. We're not talking about unequal revenue sharing that broke the league apart. We're not talking about, massive threats of defections all over the place, like what was happening, what ended up happening when they decided themselves to go ahead and leave. We're not talking about Texas and Oklahoma, A&M, Nebraska, all this infighting and power struggles. I mean, none of that exists now. Those teams don't even exist in the conference. So, that's what helps you rationalize it a bit more and makes it make more sense outside of just they're returning to exactly where they started from. They're returning to a league that's, in some cases, the same team-wise and, has the same name, but besides the handful of teams that are still around, and the name itself, I mean, there's a lot that's different, as we mentioned. So different era, different time, different set of rules, and different landscape that is going on right now. There was no NIL back in 2010 when Colorado was making their decision. So yeah, a lot of things have changed since then.
That's the other thing about now is that Deion Sanders couldn't have been a college head coach 5 years ago, because he one time had lunch with Des Bryant and got Des Bryant suspended for the rest of the season at Oklahoma State. I'm sure Pokes fans remember that. And there was, I
hadn't thought about that in like 12 years. I don't know why randomly I said 12. I'm trying to think. It's probably whenever that was.
Probably, right around that time. I don't know. So just before the rules changed, Deion Sanders couldn't have done this because he was not the right guy at the right time. And so you couldn't have brought in somebody who was, a marketing genius, which Deion absolutely is. He can promote himself better than anybody can promote themselves anywhere in any walk of life. He's unbelievable at that. You could not have that in college football just a few years ago. And here you are, you have him taking over a 1-11 team and got people thinking like, well, I don't know, this could be exciting, because not only can you go in the transfer portal and change out the entire roster, which he's essentially done, you can also do that by saying like, hey, come on here and we can get you a marketing deal. And that was not possible before. So now, you're going to have guys like Deion Sanders that can bring attention to programs like Colorado. And I remember when, before the NIL stuff happened and he had, people were talking about him because he had kind of thrown his name in the hat for FSU. I was like, well, until that stuff gets passed, I don't think anybody really wants to touch him, because they know that, Deion does what he thinks is what is best for him in the program. That doesn't necessarily mean following those rules, because, and I just cite that Des Bryant thing, like he and his agent and Des Bryant had a meal, and then Des Bryant got suspended for the rest of the year. So that's how it worked then. Now, shoot, have all the meals you want. Knock yourself out. Things are wildly, wildly different.